1990s were a time unlike any other for science fiction, especially for one of the biggest sci-fi franchises of all time.
Let's rock and roll!
6.
With 4 blockbuster movies, 2 of them legit box office hits, 3 different critically acclaimed series that completed full 7-season runs, and an entire Las Vegas experience that I will always be mad I never got to go to.
It's possible they've mistaken us for a potential mate.
Star Trek was on the roll of a lifetime in the 90s. However, as the decade drew to a close, there were signs that Trek's best days were about to be in the past. Star Trek Voyager's ratings faded in its final seasons, and the last 90s Star Trek movie, Insurrection, underperformed at the box office. In 2001, the powers that be made a big move to revitalize interest in Star Trek by taking Gene Roddenberry's vision in an unexpected direction. For the first time, Star Trek would stop moving forward. The franchise would wind the clock back to when the Federation began, with Star Trek Enterprise, the first ever Star Trek prequel series. The plan was to rediscover the spirit of adventure and exploration that used to be the hallmark of what had now become an aging franchise. So, when Enterprise debuted in 2001 on UPN, a network with such memorable programming as Homeboys in Outer Space,
Where am I?
Directly in front of the luckiest man in the universe,
and Shasta McNasty, there was a sense of self-assured success. This was Star Trek. Voyager had been the flagship show of UPN. What could possibly go wrong? This is Giant Freaking Robot, and this is why Enterprise failed.
'Cause I've got faith for the heart. I'm going where my heart will take me.
Rick Berman and Brannon Braga were pretty much the minds in charge of Star Trek throughout the 80s and 90s.
No one's gonna bend to break me. I can reach any star.
Their leadership and their ideas helped transform Gene Roddenberry's canceled TV show into a modern multimedia empire. So it makes sense they'd be confident in what they were doing with Enterprise.
Take her out, Mr. Mayweather. Straight and steady.
Berman and Braga were so certain this new plan would work that Enterprise didn't even bother to put the word Star Trek in its title. After everyone agreed this was dumb, it finally showed up in season 3. But Berman and Braga believed an audience would find the show, support it, and love it no matter what they called it. They may not have been wrong if Enterprise turned out to be any of the things it was supposed to be.
The show originally was supposed to be set on Earth. The show that Rick and I pitched to the studio was a show set on Earth. It was all about the building of the first starship, and it's about Archer putting a crew together to be the first people went out. And it was either the end of the season or somewhere mid-season the ship was going to be launched. Mm-hmm.
We know this because 5 years after its cancellation, director J.J. Abrams pulled off all the things Enterprise originally promised with his big hit Star Trek prequel film in 2009, even if it was in a more Hollywood lunk-headed kind of way.
you bitch an arse, Captain!
There are plenty of reasons to dislike the idea of prequels today, now that so many franchises have fallen back on them for various lazy projects. But other than The Phantom Menace,
I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
the idea of doing prequels back then still felt creatively fresh. Enterprise was supposed to take us back to the beginning of the Federation, before the time of Captain Kirk and Spock, to the first starship to bear that famous name, in a tumultuous galaxy humans were only beginning to understand. More than that, Enterprise was supposed to be different in style and tone. They wanted a stripped-down approach, one that emphasized human determination over excessive reliance on technology. The show's admittedly excellent production design reflected that.
If you look around the bridge, you'll see that the controls are more tactile, mechanical. The buttons are you have to push them. I mean, they're not all touch screens. It's a much more physical show. It's rooted more in the mechanical and less in the esoteric, if you will. It's a little more familiar Still future, but a little more familiar to our mind.
Its scripts were less consistent about it. Rather than fully embracing this low-tech premise, Enterprise became a television series at war with itself.
So we did battle with them over just being able to do this concept from the beginning. So it's a miracle we even got it there. Do you know what I'm saying?
The show's pilot, Broken Bow, immediately centered the series around time travel.
The people running the TV division at the time had a lot of reservations about doing a prequel. Some people wanted a show set in the 24th century.
Setting in motion events that would waste what should have been an interesting start on a half-hearted season-long temporal Cold War that went nowhere.
We added the temporal Cold War aspect of the show to satisfy the studio's desire for something futuristic.
By making time travel the show's primary focus for season 1, the story sidelines much of the era they'd worked so hard to set things in, telling stories that could have been told in any place in time, negating the core appeal of the premise.
Did you feel like the temporal time war was that a constraint for you guys?
To me, it was strangulating because I didn't want it in there.
This was only the first of the show's missteps. Though Enterprise was meant to be a fresh start, it repeated many of the problems that had caused Voyager's ratings to sag as the show went on.
It appears we have lost our sex appeal, Captain.
Among those unforced errors was Enterprise's repeating Voyager's excessive reliance on meaningless technobabble. It felt even more out of place on a show specifically designed with simplicity in mind.
It's been a long road, getting from there to here.
Like the series itself, the Enterprise opening credits were meant to signify something fresh, embodying the spirit of excitement and adventure that the show's creative team hoped to recapture. Casting off the traditional fly-by open used by all previous Star Trek incarnations, Enterprise created a visual history lesson that rocketed through the accomplishments of human exploration. That feels pretty Star Trek, don't it? Then it ruined that otherwise exciting montage by setting it to an awkward song about faith, crooned by what sounds like Rod Stewart auditioning for Creed.
'Cause I've got faith of the heart.
Nothing says exploration and adventure quite like Christian elevator rock. Later, when Berman's team realized everyone hated the song, they tried to fix it by speeding up the tempo. Like setting a Michael Bolton song to a bossa nova beat cranked out of a Casio, this made something bad somehow even worse.
Long road, getting from there to here.
The opening had cemented its place as a punchline among fans. I'm probably making Enterprise seem terrible, but it really isn't. When judged in its entirety, Enterprise is a good Star Trek show, and maybe this will be controversial to say, but it's better than its direct predecessor, Star Trek Voyager.
Am I making any sense here?
No, but that's okay.
Enterprise excels at all the little things. For example, the crew's fear of using the very newly invented transporter system is an ongoing subplot in the background of almost every episode.
They claim it's safe.
Do they indeed?
And the show sticks with it, keeping the team running around in shuttles and coordinating docking sequences. A lesser series would have been unable to resist overusing the ship's transporter to save both time and money on production. Enterprise resists that temptation, so this small decision and many others like it add a feeling of danger and instability to everything the series does. But the show is a constant push and pull between those good ideas and other missed opportunities. Nothing in Enterprise embodies that duality better than its series lead,
We can't be afraid of the wind, Ensign.
Captain Jonathan Archer, played by veteran sci-fi actor Scott Bakula. Bakula was already a big star when he joined Star Trek, thanks to the acclaimed time travel series Quantum Leap.
Oh boy!
Bakula's Quantum Leap character was built around a sort of old-fashioned, well-meaning, aw-shucks naivete, and he brought all of that with him to play Captain Archer. The unusual thing about Archer is that he's not very good at his job, and he shouldn't be. He's the first. He went out exploring without any rules, directives, or red alert protocols, and expected everyone he met to give him a friendly smile and an extended hand. Bakula's aw-shucks persona is perfect for that. But Starfleet had no idea what it was doing when it picked its first captain.
It's a bit more complicated than that.
The Jonathan Archer that Enterprise introduces is careless and sloppy. He's too trusting, too eager, and frankly, too damn friendly. It's constantly getting his ship in trouble.
Tosca, insult, some kind of an insult.
He's insulting us or we insulted them?
I'm not sure.
When things don't go as planned, Archer pouts and complains that aliens are mean. As the missions get tougher, he becomes increasingly unhappy, miserable, and even morose.
Sorry.
His friendly demeanor is replaced by a scowl. As the seasons wear on, he begins holding grudges, shooting first and asking questions later. That may sound like criticism, but it's actually praise. Archer's ability to make the best of a bad situation he's not at all suited for is the most interesting thing about the show.
Maybe you're right.
But rather than fully exploring it, Enterprise resorts to telling us how great he is with verbal diarrhea and doe-eyed reactions from his crew, rather than grappling with long-term consequences. Archer turned into a placeholder for an already determined future success. His attitude doesn't matter, his mistakes don't cost them anything, and his decisions are rendered irrelevant as Enterprise gives him a predetermined grand destiny. An ill-equipped Archer struggling to figure out how to command on the frontier should have been the core conflict of the entire show. Instead, the writers kept trying to narratively force the character into a cookie-cutter Captain Kirk mold, while Scott Bakula gave us something else. Archer isn't Captain Kirk. He's obsessed with water polo.
Think of it as one part basketball, one part swimming.
He spends his off-duty hours hugging a beagle. He's more comfortable talking about warp theory than negotiating with hostile aliens or making out with green women. Enterprise never fully embraces who Archer is. He has a destiny, and one way or another, he has to fulfill it.
I told you, best sport in the world.
The rest of the ship's crew are a similar mix of good ideas that never fully come to fruition. That's especially true of T'Pol, who, in her most vital moments, serves as a reality check for Archer, the person to tell him he has no idea what he's doing.
Your intentions were admirable, Captain. But nothing can be done for that crew now, and if we remain here, your crew could be put in jeopardy.
It wasn't a bad idea to have a Vulcan on Enterprise. After all, this is a Star Trek set in the very earliest days of humanity's galactic awareness. Vulcans are the first aliens encountered by humans, and would, logically, be one of the few alien races they'd be well acquainted with during this period. However, it was a bad idea to make that Vulcan Archer's first officer. T'Pol could have served that same function as a science officer or another crew position outside of the human chain of command.
There's room in here.
Enterprise is supposed to be a show about mankind's first leap out into the stars. Instead, it's a show about humans reaching out into the stars whenever Archer's on the bridge.
My name is Jonathan Archer. We're on a mission of exploration from the planet Earth.
When he's not, it turns into a show about how a Vulcan named T'Pol told humans what to do on their first attempt to go it alone.
T'Pol to engineering!
It's particularly wrong-headed in light of Archer's own resentment towards Vulcans.
Ever since I can remember, I've seen Vulcans as an obstacle.
He sets out on his journey determined to prove humans don't need help from Vulcans.
We may need to defer to their judgment.
We've been deferring to their judgment for 100 years.
John.
How much longer?
Until you've proven you're ready.
And for his initial act as captain of Earth's first Warp 5 ship, he makes a Vulcan his first officer.
If I asked you to stay, it might look like I wasn't ready to do this on my own.
Perhaps you should add pride to your list.
Nothing about this makes any sense. It makes even less sense when you consider what Enterprise made out of the Vulcans. Instead of the logical, peace-loving aliens we've grown to know and love as part of the Trek universe,
we disposed of emotion, Doctor. Where there's no emotion, there's no motive for violence.
We got a bunch of angry, close-minded racists with an addiction to spray tan and a penchant for murder and threats.
You people are so used to lying, you don't even tell the truth to each other.
In the show's final season, there was a last-minute, half-hearted attempt to reconcile all of this and turn the Vulcans back into beings best known for their inability to lie. But by then, it was too little, too late. The frustrating thing here is that T'Pol is a good character, and Jolene Blalock delivers the right performance even when the script is wrong.
Rick and Brannon gave us a lot of liberty to portray our characters as we saw fit.
But it's also clear they hired the incredibly beautiful actress to be photographed in her underwear, something the show seems to do any chance it gets. To be fair, the show also gives male crew members similar attention.
Yeah, she's beautiful and she's not wearing much, and I'm not wearing much either.
Trip Tucker often ends up shirtless and entwined in uncomfortable situations.
I'm not quite sure if congratulations are in order, Commander, but you're pregnant.
Now, I'm no prude. I got no problem with seeing pretty people looking sexy.
Not everyone is comfortable with the idea of disrobing in front of others.
There's nothing wrong with seeing T'Pol in her Vulcan underwear if, outside of that, the show gives us other things to build up her character. But Enterprise never did enough justice to her character, and there's only so much Blalock herself can do to try and make what she's given any better.
The fact that I'm Vulcan may help me establish a dialogue.
Charles Trip Tucker III, played by Connor Trenier, is the ship's catfish-loving Southern engineer. He's also emotionally unstable and a constant source of problems for his captain.
I didn't think it would hurt to teach her how to read.
Then you didn't think hard enough. We're out here to meet new species, not tell them what to do.
In one of the best gags on the animated series Star Trek Lower Decks, an alternate universe version of T'Pol appears who, after marrying Trip Tucker,
I was married to a human for 63 years. I know sarcasm when I hear it.
Uses her experience interacting with him to become the Federation's foremost expert on human emotions.
T'Pol, my Vulcan first officer, is an expert on human emotions after being married to Trip Tucker for decades.
Somehow, this walking emotional time bomb is third in command of the ship.
Maybe you should pay more attention to upgrading your weapons, so you can blow the hell out of these bastards when we find them.
Given his behavior, this rank never made much sense. The Enterprise creative team writes Trip like a wet-behind-the-ears ensign, not a reliable, seasoned officer.
I might have expected something like this from a first-year recruit, but not you.
Luckily, Trenier's performance is fun, so he's not hard to like.
You'll be glad to know my log won't mention your firing on a fellow officer. I appreciate that.
A court-martial would hardly be a fitting ending to this incident.
Phlox, the ship's denobulan doctor, may be the most consistently interesting thing about Enterprise. The character comes off as an extreme optimist, but in interviews, actor John Billingsley claims Phlox may actually be the opposite. He's playing the role as if Phlox is so resigned to his fate that he's totally unaffected and unconcerned. And by being so accepting of any outcome, no matter how bad it might be, he's unbothered and carefree. Dozens of episodes could have been written about Phlox's complex marital arrangements.
Oh, my. I thought about asking for Lisa to be my second wife. Turned out she already had 3 husbands.
But of course, they weren't, because that would have been interesting.
Oh, any man would be a fool to ignore the romantic overtures of a healthy denobulan woman.
Enterprise scored some great guest stars. A guest appearance by Scott Bakula's Quantum Leap companion Dean Stockwell.
Oh, boy.
Was squandered on a generic character unworthy of the actor's talents. Jeffrey Combs' brilliant performance as the Andorian commander Shran.
Look at the trouble you've gotten your pink skin into this time.
Demanded he be used as a recurring character. Jeffrey Combs has a habit of doing this in Star Trek shows, it seems.
Brunt, FCA. To think a Wei-Yung could be capable of such treachery.
Hey now, this has all been a huge mistake.
It should also have prompted them to go a step further and find a way to make Combs part of the regular cast. There were rumors this might have been the plan if the show had gotten a 5th season.
We keep doing each other favors.
Isn't that how alliances are born?
There's so much more that could be said about what Enterprise actually got right. The rest of the supporting cast works nearly as well as the ones we've highlighted. Malcolm Reed's obsession with protocols.
Read that. That's not bad.
Hoshi's fear of, well, everything. Mayweather's past growing up on a spacefaring freighter. However, Enterprise never moved fast enough to capitalize on its strengths. Shran got a couple of episodes a season, and Phlox was kept locked away in his sickbay chasing the occasional escaped Tiberian bat. In 2005, after 4 seasons of sinking ratings, Enterprise was canceled. Enterprise was supposed to be a grand new vision focused on exploration and adventure, a show about the triumph of the human spirit. Instead, it kept getting bogged down in worn-out gimmicks like time travel that it never needed. Many shows take a few seasons to find their sea legs. Just ask TNG.
Y'all must be mistaken.
And Enterprise had started to find its equilibrium when Paramount pulled the plug.
We had grown very weary of space battles and people with prosthetic appliances on their forehead walking around. And we wanted to do a show that focused on the people, more so. Less plot-driven shows, more character-driven shows. Now, it will be debated whether that was a good idea because the ratings went down. But was that because Star Trek had been around for so long, or is that because the show didn't work?
Enterprise's producers built their show around the idea of faith. But their work caused Hollywood to lose faith in the entire franchise, sending longtime steward Rick Berman to the unemployment line. Its failure ended up killing Gene Roddenberry's original dream. And given the nightmares Kurtzman has beamed into Star Trek since, Enterprise's failure may have killed it forever. But it's not quite the disaster it's been made out to be. Enterprise should have been Star Trek's future. Now it's the last gasp of the greatest sci-fi franchise's golden era. Got your own takes on Enterprise? Set your phasers to kill in the comments. Give the video a like and subscribe to the channel for more from us here at Giant Freakin' Robot.
It's been a long road, getting from there to here. It's been a long time, but my time is finally near. And I can feel the change in the wind right now. Nothing's in my way.
The real warp core.